Welcome to Follow South Jersey's Follow Salem podcast about the people, places, and all things good in Salem, New Jersey. Today we're talking with Salem City Mayor Jody Veler. Mayor Veler has worked within the nonprofit sector managing programs, identifying funding sources, grant writing, and building teams of volunteers to advance community-based initiatives. Mayor Veler is the first woman and person of color to serve as mayor of Salem and has just been re-elected to a second term. Hi, I'm Dean Johnson, Editor-in-Chief of Follow South Jersey, and welcome to the Follow Salem podcast. Everything about the people, places, and all things good in Salem, New Jersey. Today we are honored to have Mayor Jody Veler. Mayor Veler, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
And especially, it is Election Day today. So, what are your feelings coming into this Election Day?
I feel good. I feel very calm about it. What's going to happen is going to happen, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of division in our communities. At least the media is portraying a lot of division in our communities. Is that division actually there? And if it is, how do we come together after such vitriol language has been coming out in this election?
There hasn't been that much of that. I mean, it exists in Salem County, but it's not to the extent that it has been, I think, in the rest of the country, because we are a small community. Mm-hmm. We have Republicans and Democrats sitting side by side, working together in such a tiny little community. We only have, 64,000 people.
Right.
And we know each other. We know each other well.
Your neighbors.
We're neighbors. So
Right.
it's not quite as bad as it is when you like someone just because they're on an opposite political fence as you are.
Right. That's the beauty of the small town.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a distinguished background in nonprofit leadership, community development. What motivated you to transition from that into a public servant?
I really believed that I could bring that background into public service, into the municipality, because I had built up all of these contacts, all of these connections, doing the housing and the community development, and all these things I had started down here at Stand Up for Salem when I moved to Salem. But before that, it was Isles and Trenton, right. Different places in Camden and all around. And I just had built up this huge network
right.
that I thought could be of great value to the city and bring a different vision, a little bit more bottom-up vision than top-down.
Okay. And you've brought a lot of those resources with you?
Yeah,
or
all
give you
of
the
them.
experience to find, you brought them all
yes,
with you?
all of them.
Calling out favors, right?
Yes.
Very good. You're the first woman to hold this office
yes,
in Salem City. How has that historic milestone influenced your leadership or your approach to priorities in Salem?
I don't know that it influenced it on purpose, but I think, and we might get into this later, I did my dissertation on the glass cliff, and one of the things that I had looked at was women in leadership, and the myths and the realities, and women do tend to be more people-oriented.
Right.
They want leadership, but not for the sake of leadership or the sake of climbing a ladder. It really is all about the community and the people. So I would say that perhaps that has influenced the way I look at things.
Right.
Is how is it going to impact the community as a whole, not just the dollars and cents and the numbers at the end of the day.
Right. So your doctoral research was on that glass cliff. Can you explain what that is?
The glass cliff is a phenomenon, and I wasn't even aware of it until I started doing research for my doctorate, in which women and people of color are often given leadership positions in failing organizations. And then you're expected to turn this organization around with no resources, no money, limited support, and it's very often a failure.
Right.
Sometimes you can make a success out of it,
right.
And move forward with it. But I guess there were points in my career where I felt I wasn't doing well and couldn't understand why. And then it was like, oh my gosh, this isn't really you. This is a phenomenon, and it's
right.
happening to other women, nationwide.
Right. So, with over a decade of experience in grant writing, nonprofit management, what values or lessons have you brought to the sector of city government?
Relationships. It's all about networking. It really is all about relationships, and that's what people don't understand, that it takes time to build those relationships. Asking for a grant, and I know that people, the federal government, the state, foundations, they put out these requests for proposals, and you think that you could just write that grant, and if it's good enough, they're going to give it to you. But the relationships that you have with the people that hold that money on the other end count at the end of the day.
Right.
You know, your reputation counts at the end of the day. If they don't know you, it's like walking into a bank cold, with a basic idea and no credit.
Right.
You know, they're going to look at a lot of different things.
Right, and you come in with a reputation of being successful with the grants that you have previously
and your
received.
name is out there. And that's, again, why it's important, too, sometimes to network, to go to the conferences, to go down to the League of Municipalities, or not even that one, just, you know, housing and community development. And these are where all the people who are working in these fields are, and to be able to sit down with them and have an intelligent conversation and tell them what the needs of Salem are, or how we're dealing with certain issues, and even sometimes just complaining about the same things over and over so that we have a bond there, and coming up with solutions together. But that all counts at the end of the day when you turn in that application.
Right. Okay. So we're about 10 hours away from finding out whether you will have a second term or not. So assuming that you will have a second term, you know, what are some of your priorities for this second term?
A lot of implementation. We're good at getting grants. We've been blessed, really, to get some really big grants, some really good grants. But because of the limited capacity in our municipality, the staffing, the limits on staffing, and we recently just had an exodus. We lost even more staff that we're struggling to replace. Our implementation is very slow. And most people don't even realize how long it takes from the time that grant is approved just to get the money out of the state's hands or out of the federal government's hands, because there's a massive trail of paperwork. And a massive set of requirements, you know, engineering firms and requests for proposals, and, you know, it really is a burden. So the focus is on two things. Implementation is one, and small business development for the city is another.
How are you going to attract small businesses?
Small businesses, we have a lot of small businesses here, believe it or not. They're just flying under the radar because I believe that most of them really don't know how to not be under the radar.
Okay.
No one has ever helped anyone with their paperwork or to get set up, and we don't have a lot of buildings available. So a lot of the businesses would need to be more home-based or internet-based, but like one of the things you look at, we struggle with cleanups in Salem. We struggle with mowing lawns. We struggle with picking up garbage. There are people in the city who would do that for the city. But the city has requirements. You have to put in a request we send out every once in a while a request for quotes. There's this entire packet of paperwork and insurances, and you have to get stickers from the DEP in order to qualify just to go and pick up garbage in a lot.
Wow. So
So most people don't have the time, or they don't have the skill set. So it's things like that we need to grant fund. And I've had conversations with the African American Chamber of Commerce and other groups to come in here, sit down, and be able to help people in the city with that paperwork, so that local people can then move into those positions, you know, contract for the city. You know, we have home child care. Rutgers does home child care certification. They're right in Pennsville. But very few people know about them, and that if you get certified for your home daycare, you're eligible for state funds per child. You know, so they just don't know how to do the paperwork. So it's those types of things that I really think would stimulate the economy here, help people earn a living, even though our transportation isn't the best and we haven't gotten a big business in yet. We can do those things with smaller businesses, even if we don't have the brick and mortar.
So community development then is one of your core skills.
Yes.
What early successes are you seeing in Salem's development that make you really optimistic for the city's future?
We've got a lot of plans that have been put in place. We didn't just rely on, you know, some things that City Council knew. Every scholarship, every training assistance grant that we could take, you know, with people who knew more than us, we were able to do that. So there are actually housing strategies that have been developed, and it's all kind of coming together. We're redoing the master plan at this time. We are under state monitoring, and they have asked us, you know, once again, the final piece is to put together the actual strategy. The step 1, step 2, step 3. So that's going to come into fruition as well shortly, within the next, you know, hopefully within the next month. And then we'll have this okay, this is how it's going to go, and this is how we're going to do the implementation.
So you mentioned vacant properties. Can you tell us more about the citywide housing study that you initiated and its role in revitalizing these neighborhoods?
That was with the Housing and Community Development. No, New Jersey Community Capital did that. Diane Sterner, we did bring in some help from the Center for Community Progress.
Right.
And they divided the city into 5 different sections, 5 different neighborhoods, because they all have different needs.
Right.
And that is on the website, but it was broken down by different needs, looking at, what we have in rental, what we have in home ownership. And right now we're at a 68% rental rate. We only have 30 some odd percent in home ownership,
Right.
but it's imbalanced in that you would be hard pressed to find a 1-bedroom apartment
Right.
in Salem City. So those are the balances that need to be corrected as we move forward with the plans. We need more 1-bedroom apartments, actual apartments for people
Right.
at a reasonable fee.
Right.
And we also need to, look at more home ownership and how do we drive home ownership in the city, investment in homes.
Okay. Getting back to businesses for a second, in light of Salem's economic struggles, are there specific industries, businesses that you're actively working to attract here? And how do you see them addressing the city's unemployment needs?
Well, they take a while, and not everything works out, and this has been going on for quite some time, even before I was mayor. But right now, we are working with Giordano's, which is a recycling company. They're a family-owned recycling company. They recently won an award for being the best family-owned business out in Cumberland County, and they're looking at the old landfill to put a recycling center, and they would do cardboard and plastic and composting out there in an indoor facility.
Right.
And they would bring, jobs and host fees and things like that. But it's a very long process through the DEP and permits, and is it buildable? And it could fall apart at any time. And that's what the problem is, I think, focusing on these larger businesses. We have the glass factory. The city is beginning to foreclose on portions of it. It's
Right.
owned by 4 or 5 different companies, and one of them has stopped paying their taxes, so we're right in there, to foreclose on that,
Right.
which will help us bargain with, companies coming in.
Right.
We've had interest from international processing plants, Perdomo Worldwide. There was a warehouse company, so we have a lot of interest,
Right.
but it's difficult when you have owners that, we don't own all the property,
Right.
just like the supermarket property,
Right.
we don't own that.
Right.
So you're trying to broker something in between, and a lot of times these properties were bought on speculation. So when someone comes in even to purchase it, the owner expects that it has greater value than it actually does.
Right.
So a lot of deals very often fall apart. So
Right.
I get optimistic but not too optimistic, and that's why I'm focusing, I think, more on the smaller businesses and
Right.
what can we do right now that we do have control over, as opposed to trying to get 60, 70, 80 jobs into a glass factory that we don't really have that much control over.
Right. Now, you mentioned the vacant supermarket.
Yeah.
I know there have been some efforts in trying to
Lots of
attract
efforts.
something there. Can you talk about that?
Right now, we do have an interested supermarket, but as I said, we don't own the plaza. The city does not own the plaza. They would like to buy it. Negotiations are ongoing with the owner, but the dollar that it is for sale, or that owner wants, versus the dollar amount that the supermarket company would want to pay, are very wide apart at this time. We are a CCI community. We have a liaison to the DEP through their collaborative control initiative, and they've been helping us with negotiations, and so has the economic director for the county, Sean Sepsi, has stepped in and helped us a lot, because our commerce director moved to North Carolina, so we've had a vacancy there, which will be filled in another 2 weeks.
Okay.
So they've all been assisting with trying to get all these moving parts
Right.
together, but it's been a difficult time trying to
Define.
get that supermarket in,
But the ongoing
ongoing since
negotiations.
2017.
Since 2017.
Yeah.
So you secured the first AmeriCorps state and national program for Salem, which is an impressive accomplishment. How has this program impacted the city's youth and community engagement overall?
The community engagement, I feel like it did a really good job, and this was a byproduct of it, of civic engagement, because once AmeriCorps was brought in to do a study of the vacant and abandoned properties, to go street by street, lot by lot, try and get everything organized in spreadsheets. They also did financial literacy classes monthly to try and get people credit ready to buy houses, because we knew we wanted to make this, home ownership push. And even though it actually caused us some issues later on, the people that worked for AmeriCorps got very engaged in how the city works, how the city actually runs, and the challenges of a distressed city with minimal staffing, and how it all works together. So that was really my pride and joy with that. Unfortunately, it's not going to continue because we had some issues with the matching funds, which is another one of my pet peeves at the state, matching funds.
Right.
And the state runs on a fiscal year and cities run on a calendar year. So we were off kilter, and because of some benefits issues at the state, our budget was under where we needed it to be, and things had to get cut.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that was the program that got cut and didn't move forward. So we'll have to figure out a different way to do that in the future. But I would love to find a way to do some type of internship program, because that civic engagement, Councilman Jamal Long was an AmeriCorps alum.
Okay.
So Public Housing Authority Commissioner Ahmed Nichols was an AmeriCorps alumni from the first group of AmeriCorps people. And many of them now show up for city council meetings, just to see what's going on, because no one really understands how the city works until you're kind of part of it on a daily basis and you see it all the time.
Right. So a recent study on community violence identified the need for targeted youth programs. What role do you see for local organizations in violence prevention, and how is the city supporting these efforts?
We hired Social Contact, which was an organization that was brought in to do a collective impact plan. And collective impact is really a fancy term for all the horses need to be pulling in one direction.
Right.
People can do different things, but they should be complementary to each other. They should support each other, and at the end of the day, the evaluation should be the same. We all should be pulling towards one goal. So they did a lot of outreach, stakeholder outreach. They did an inventory of all the nonprofits working in the city, so that we could figure out kind of where we were and where we needed to be. And a lot of the information that came out of those stakeholder questions and the youth focus groups and things like that are going to help us move forward. So that was a part of the monies that we spent. And there will be an RFP released probably a week with some programs that nonprofits can apply for, one or all of them, again, focused more on tech jobs through technical skills, internet skill, IT skills, because again, transportation,
and space.
And space is an issue, along with a few other things, behavioral programs and things like that. We don't have a lot of funds, we don't have a lot of money, but we can do that much. And then we rely a lot on the community groups, that are forming and being put together. And we found gaps. We did find gaps in the services, and we were able to bring that to the table with all the nonprofits and say, hey, we have an issue here.
Right.
We have an issue with the older kids, because most of the youth grants stop at age 24.
Okay.
But when you've got an issue from 25 to 30, there's a gap there. So we have to figure out how to service that group of people.
Right.
There's a gap with the girls. And I spent Saturday with the Alpha Kappa Alphas, the AKAs came down. There were a lot of youth groups helping with the cleanup in the city, and we had a great day with young ladies from the middle school, and they are highly intelligent and let us know exactly what they needed. There's just not enough for them. There's not enough in the way of sports. There's not enough in the way of arts. There's a whole gap for young women coming up in Salem.
Right. So you mentioned social contract. Can you be specific on some of the things that they found in their studies?
Well, those gaps were there, and a lot of the other things were not a surprise. They also hit the point of data saturation pretty quickly.
Okay.
Everybody in Salem knows what the problems in Salem are, so it's, the not enough for youth is the huge one.
Right.
The community center and the condition that is in, and that it's defunct at this
Right.
point in time, is a huge issue. The condition of the city in general, the vacant and abandoned properties, and just the overall conditions are problematic.
So the city has made some investments in public safety technology.
Yes, a lot.
Spot shotter, for example,
Yes.
hiring new police officers.
We've got
the
cameras
cops
coming in,
grant.
another 60 cameras. We've got a dog coming in, new police cars coming in.
Are you seeing results from some of these?
The shot spotter, most definitely, and we didn't know how bad it was until we got that shot spotter.
Okay.
But the basis behind it was, shot spotter, a lot of people that didn't really care for the idea or the money spent on it, one of the arguments that was made, and it's a valid argument, is that it's not something that you make an arrest on. Shot spotter isn't what you make an arrest on, but there was a young man who bled to death here because when the gunshots go off, you really can't tell where
Right.
they're coming from. So you're going out and you're looking, but you're not seeing anything, and because it happened in the dark at night, no one was able to find the victim, and that was really more, it was not being able to be found that caused him to
die. Mhm.
So even if we could save one person, it was worth the money to get that shot spotter, so we could triangulate that
Right.
and know where the shots were, so now the police can go out there and be able to gather early evidence, not days later when someone finds the scene and it's been rained on and
Right.
walked on and kicked
Right.
around, so it has made a difference in those aspects. And like I said, if it saves one life,
It's worth it.
it's worth the money.
Right. So community violence is often tied to economic issues.
Yes.
Unemployment, lack of opportunities cited as major factors. What specific economic initiatives are currently underway to help reduce violence through job creation and skill development?
Well, we have hopes for well, I still call it the JCPenney building, but now it's the Building Preservation Arts
Right.
Center. We're still writing grants, of course, trying to create different programs, things like that, different programs to come into Salem, looking at job training. And I will probably write one or two more. The new USDA one has come out again. So again, like I said, I reached out to, the African American Chamber of Commerce to do the small business development.
Right.
But it's not just that, studies have also shown, like I said, when I went to the land bank seminar and looking at vacant and abandoned properties, that they have linked these vacant abandoned properties to higher rates of gun violence in neighborhoods. So that's another initiative that I would like to put forth, if I come out November 5th as still retaining my seat
Right.
as mayor, is to get youth involvement and neighborhood involvement in maintaining these vacant lots that are in the city. There were studies that came out of Youngstown, Ohio. They're still doing it in Michigan, in Flint, Michigan, and one in Camden. Flint, Michigan is on the lead on this, that when neighbors took care of the vacant properties, the crime rate was the lowest. Professionals, like hiring mowers, was second lowest, and if they were completely abandoned, the crime rates were the highest.
Right.
So there is a link between the way the neighborhoods look, the vacant and abandoned properties and homes,
Right.
and what goes on in those
That
neighborhoods.
broken window syndrome.
Yes.
Right. Are there any other mentorship programs, intervention programs for at-risk youth here?
Well, we have quite a few with the nonprofits going on. Jonathan Cummings, Thrive South Jersey, they do some programs. There's a girls group with Sequence Parsons. They do dance out there, and I think there was a karate program at Broadway United Methodist. There is an after-school program at Pastor Woody's church, and that is through
Hope Loft?
Hope Loft. Yeah, there's a lot of them. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and that is Miss Nichols runs that after schools, and they've got a lot of kids there. Pastor Johnson, Sunita's got the daycare behind us.
Right.
So there's a lot of groups, and that was part of Social Contact's job, was to list all these groups so people kind of knew where they could go, and we knew where we could refer other people and send other people. There's the Bridge program is out at the VOTEC, and I don't know that a lot of people know that. Police can use that for a station house adjustment, where kids, instead of being sent to some type of juvenile facility, not that we have many anymore, they can go out to the VOTEC if they're of that age and participate in technical skills programs.
Right.
And there is another program that's called PET, and I forget what the acronym stands for, but those are things that come out of the Interagency Council of Human Services. So there's quite a few things.
Yeah. Do you have a central location where all these are listed, where people can find them?
That not exactly, and again, that was what we were trying to get together with Social Contact.
Right.
We have a manual that comes out with all human service things, but not necessarily segregating out these things for the kids.
Right.
And programs come and go, and they change, or they change location. So sometimes it's like the food pantries. It's very hard sometimes to keep up with them.
By the time you publish it, they've moved somewhere else.
They've moved somewhere else. Yeah. So that was another thing with Social Contact, that we need to be able to maintain these lists, and we need a steering committee is being formed now so that we can do something like that, and we can have the website, and we can make sure that everyone knows where everyone else is, and that we're all working together.
That's great. Changing subject a little bit, you currently work with NJDEP, Department of Environmental Protection, on grant initiatives. Are there environmental justice sustainability projects that you're bringing here to Salem? Is there a need for that?
Well, I'm sure that there's a need for it, but I'm a subcontractor, and I work at NJDEP, but I don't push projects, or I don't get to pick and choose projects.
Mm-hmm.
We did apply for and received a large brownfields grant it was through the EDA.
Okay.
And we are working on remediating some of the brownfields that we have going.
Can you explain what that is, the brownfields?
Brownfields are contaminated sites, and they're sites that have been contaminated either by, toxic chemicals, things like that, even gas stations, oil and all that things that were left after the company closed, moved.
Right.
So we have a garage down on East Broadway that we're working on cleaning up. The glass factory site, there are bits and pieces of that. That are in various stages of cleanups.
And through brownfields?
Through brownfields funding.
How many sites here are brownfields?
I think there's 23 altogether.
23 altogether.
Yeah, which is a lot for
it is a lot for a small or a very small community.
Yeah, they're not all huge, and they're not super fun sites, so I'm thankful for that.
As a community garden specialist, in your earlier roles,
yes.
Are there green space and urban agricultural projects that you're championing in Salem?
I always champion green space and urban agricultural projects, and I would really like to see them move forward over the next couple of years, because we do have plenty of vacant lots and vacant spaces. And what I used to do for Isles was we'd go out and we would hit a street, and there would be vacant lots, and we would knock on doors and get 4 families together and say, hey, let us help you build this garden now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I did that for years with Youth Builds kids.
Right.
And we would put these gardens together and everything. And I had about 30 of them in the city.
Okay.
So I am always championing that. And again, broken window syndrome. When the lot is taken care of and it's maintained and somebody's in there every day, the odds of things happening there lessen.
Right. So with your experience with USDA-funded housing programs, are there specific projects that are happening here in Salem that are aimed to increasing affordable housing options for low-income families?
Through the USDA, the only one that is running now is Salem, Gloucester, and Cumberland, and it's run by the Financial Wellness Institute, which used to share space with Stand Up for Salem. And Wanda Hardy has the grant, and it was a purchase repair program. The problem with that one for the USDA was in the past is that the finished cost of the house cannot exceed the loan.
Okay.
The finished value, let me say the finished value. So if the finished value of the house is only going to be $60,000 market value,
Right.
you cannot borrow $100,000 to do the repairs on the house. So that was where it was getting problematic in the city of Salem, because when I first moved down here, and it wasn't until post-COVID that our property values actually started to rise. So the program wasn't as successful here as it was in other areas.
Okay. What about the initiative for the $1 house ordinance?
We're still redoing some of that, and we're waiting. We're taking interest applications for any of the vacant and abandoned properties that the city owns. And there is a list on the city's website, or you could just look on the tax
It's a long
rolls.
list on the city's website.
Yeah, but some of them are just vacant properties.
Right.
And you can also take a look at where the tax rolls are. But there was a foreclosure moratorium, which is now lifted, so there will be even more properties that will be foreclosed on. And hopefully, as soon as our new staff member gets in, is hired by the end of the month, housing is the priority. Putting together firm plans on all of those housing programs that we have.
Right.
Because it's not just the dollar house, there's also redevelopment. We're a city in need of rehabilitation and redevelopment, so redevelopers can also apply for certain houses and things like that, and that's a different process.
Right.
So right now we're kind of taking lists of names, and then as soon as we put everything together, everyone will be contacted.
Right. So Housing Urban Development Choice Planning Grant will probably shape the future of Westside Court.
Yes.
What's your vision for this project? How do you see it transforming that area of Salem?
Well, the vision is really more up to the residents there, but we hope that most of them will choose to remain in Salem and not pick up and leave.
Right.
And that it will be a mixed use kind of development. Yeah, and we're moving along on that. We recently there's a new executive director at the Public Housing Authority. Just came on about a week ago,
Okay.
so I haven't even had the pleasure of meeting him yet. And they will be putting out a request for a developer who's going to work with them to put the vision on paper. But a survey, did just come out, things that everyone's looking for, which again is not unusual. It's jobs and things for the kids.
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right.
Slightly bigger apartments, and they would like to see, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths,
Right.
washers and dryers in the apartments,
Right.
just
Right.
basic comforts.
Right. So affordable housing has always been a focus. With new homes planned for lower income families, how can you ensure that they'll remain affordable, that they'll remain accessible to those who need it most?
Well, they will remain accessible to the first round of people.
Right.
But you cannot build wealth and prevent people from selling at market value at the same time. It's a one or the other type of thing.
Right.
So you can put a deed restriction on things for a certain period of time, 7 years. 7 years is the sweet spot. Anywhere
Right.
between 5 and 10.
That's
is
part of that
normal.
$1. It's a 7-year, wasn't it? The $1 ordinance.
Yeah, it might have been 7 years. But even there's a new housing project coming in on Linden Street through Restrepo and Associates, and that's going to be through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And those houses will be brand new but sold for less than $100,000.
Right.
But you can't build wealth and then tell someone that they can't sell the
it.
house at market value.
Right.
So that's just a chance that you have to take.
Right.
And you have to keep building more units, or looking at the density. New Jersey now lets you build accessory dwelling units, and we had discussions on using undersized lots per se, changing those ordinances and going back to more densely concentrated housing instead of sprawl.
Right.
Keep it tighter.
Right. So beyond physical health, mental health is an increasing focus in the communities, nationwide and here in Salem. Are there programs or partnerships that you're developing to support mental health services here?
Not a lot. That's another nut that needs to be cracked. I think because it's Salem, again, we tend to not have a lot Salem specific. Gateway Community Action Partnership does have a facility that they opened right here on Broadway. There are more regional. Healthcare Commons is a little bit more regional. That's a referral agency, but they tend to work Cumberland, Salem, Gloucester, not specific to Salem City necessarily.
Okay.
So that's sometimes a challenge.
Right. So your grant expertise includes developing efficient reporting systems. Are similar transparency and accountability measures in place here in Salem?
In what area?
In the areas of the spending of the money, getting the grants.
We try, but we could do better.
Okay.
We could do much better with that. But again, it's a matter of capacity. If the one person that we have is doing A, then B slips through the cracks. It's trying to do as much as we can with what we have to work with.
Right.
Our newer our new hire did mention that, and he has some ideas on how to make that more transparent.
Right.
Through like a town hall and a community meeting where at the end of the year. Because he also has experience in Camden, and that's something that they do in Camden.
Right.
Is that they do this town hall at the end of the year and say, this is what we got, this is where it went, this is
Right.
what I thought that was a great idea.
Yes.
And a great way to do that, because sometimes trying to generate too much in reports becomes cumbersome, and,
Right.
and nobody can understand it when it's too
It's not
just
put in
too
layman's
busy.
terms.
Yeah, it's not in layman's terms. It's just very busy. So
Right. So in your consulting work, you've provided guidance for cross-cultural management.
Yeah.
Salem is very diverse. How do you handle the diversity needs of Salem population, and how do you promote inclusivity and equality?
It's harder for my position as mayor than it was when I had my boots on the ground.
Okay.
When I was working for Stand Up for Salem, I didn't have a problem. It was very easy. As mayor, sometimes you have to break up the set. Like when you see things getting out of balance, you have to get in there and kind of shift some things around. But, as mayor, you don't have control over a lot of these issues.
Okay.
You don't have control over boards. You don't have, control over people's staff. So, small changes, you do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was easier when I was in the community
Right.
kind of all the time.
Right. So you've overseen a lot of community initiatives across different organizations. Is there any particular project here in Salem that holds a personal significance to you?
The AmeriCorps does. I feel really bad that we're going to lose the AmeriCorps one, and I hope that we can get that one back. And of course, the housing, that's really important, and the vacant lots, because I hope that maybe we can get some community gardening in there.
Right. So if you can give some advice to young people in Salem interested in public service, what would it be?
That we are short. We are very short-handed in public service, and very few people know how great a career can be or how lucrative a career in public service can be. And everybody, and it's not just us, it's throughout New Jersey, probably even broader. So there have been discussions through the League of Municipalities and with Rutgers and different colleges that we all want to push forth agenda in getting people interested and getting started in public service. And it's not just public service, water and sewer is another one where you can get all of these stackable credentials to get fantastic jobs. But all of the people that we hire, the clerk, deputy clerks, they have to be certified. It requires training. The municipal financial officer requires training courses.
Right.
Yes, having a degree helps, but you have to go through this series of courses,
Right.
and then you can pretty much write your own ticket.
Right.
Certified financial officers in the state of New Jersey are like hen's teeth right now.
Right.
There are multiple communities sharing one. So you want to talk about writing your own price tag on a job.
Right.
There is a lot in municipal government that is a great career, and 30 years later you will have that pension to retire.
Right.
on.
Right. Very good pension.
Yeah.
So you've worked across many roles focusing on uplifting communities. How do you manage the emotional demands of public service?
Not very well. People keep asking me that all the time, and I have my good days and my horrible days. and it has gotten better. I haven't made any secret of the fact that I've gone to Christian schools and I'm a big part of the church community, and a lot of the pastors recently stepped up and kind of helped me over some rough spots.
Okay.
So I really thank them for that. And kind of after that prayer day that they had, and coming around me, everything kind of calmed down, and
right.
and a lecture. One pastor did say, like, look, you can't take care of everybody else if you don't take care of yourself. So please,
Right.
You have to start figuring out how to take care of yourself a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my personal goal for the next
Right.
few years, is how to eke out just a little bit more time for myself.
What does time for yourself look like? What's a good day
What's a good day?
for Mayor? Yeah, Veler. Your day.
Is a good week. I had a great weekend this weekend. This was a great weekend. I got to hang out with the girls from the middle school. I didn't have to get up early.
Yeah, starts there, right?
Usually I'm up at about 4:30 on a normal day. So I didn't have a lot of correspondence, so I got to sleep in.
Yeah.
And then go and spend time with the girls.
Right.
Just took the afternoon off. Sunday too. I didn't have a lot on my plate.
Had the extra hour of sleep.
That was so great, that extra hour of sleep. So that was just like a great, breather going into the election. So that was nice. So
Good.
I need to do a little bit more of those.
Okay, looking 5-10 years down the line, what do you hope to see in Salem? What will Salem look like?
Salem will be back on its feet again. I hope to be out from under state control, that we have sustainable businesses, we have rateables. We've conquered the illegal dumping and the garbage project that we have here.
Right.
Just through the community, being able to maintain, perhaps on just individual streets,
Right.
the vacancies, or having developers put houses on those streets so that they're just not all vacant.
Right.
And the next generation, like talking with those middle school girls was a highlight, because they really do understand what's going on in their communities, and they don't approve of the garbage on the streets and the cracked sidewalks and the overgrown.
Right.
So as we pass this forward to the next generation, they're going to be different.
Right. Just a couple final questions. Have you binge watched any shows lately?
Have I binge
watched any shows lately?
Yeah, I'm binge watching Castle again.
Again?
Well, because it's an old show, so
Right.
it's not like I haven't seen them all. But yeah, I was binge watching Castle.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Definitely. Earbuds or headphones?
Headphones.
I'm a headphones guy too.
Yeah.
They keep falling off me. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Dine in or delivery?
Delivery.
Breakfast or dinner?
Breakfast.
Android or iPhone?
I have an Android.
I have an Android. I'm an Android too.
Yeah.
What's one of your guilty pleasures?
Reading bad novels.
Such as?
Fantasy. A lot of fantasy, that type of thing.
All right, very good. Mayor Veler, thank you very much for spending your time with us. I'm Dean Johnson, Editor-in-Chief of Follow South Jersey for Follow Salem podcast. Thank you very much for watching.